if you go back in time, let me give you two examples. Galileo Galilei said, I think the earth moves around the sun. But at the time, philosophers knew for sure that the sun moves around the earth. You see it moving in the sky. It was consistent with their religious beliefs, everything. So they said, we don't want to look through your telescope to change our view. We will put you in house arrest. Now, what did they achieve by that? And by the way, I'm in house arrest, but it's because of the pandemic, not because. So what did they achieve by that? They maintained their ignorance, and the earth continued to move around the sun. You know, reality is the one thing that never goes away, irrespective of whether you ignore it. You can ignore it. Now, there is another example. There is a student at Harvard, that as a result of my book on this subject that is about to come out in a week or so, she was inspired to do her PhD on the theme of my book. So she invited me to a thesis exam just a couple of months ago. And one of the examiners, a professor, asked her, do you know why Giordano Bruno, an Italian guy, was burnt at the stake? And she said, well, he was an obnoxious guy. He irritated a lot of people, which is true. You know, he was an obnoxious. But the professor corrected her and said, no. It was because he said that other stars are just like the sun. You know, there are stars like the sun, and they have planets like the Earth around them, and there may be life on those planets. And that was offensive to the church, because if there is life there and it had sinned, you know, then Christ should have visited those planets to save them, to save the life forms. And, you know, you need copies of Christ to visit those planets. And that was unacceptable. So they burned the guy.
Burned him alive.
So you see that, you know, throughout history, people are not really open-minded.
There were people that were certainly against this effort, and only because of, again, their philosophical belief system. It had nothing to do. In fact, I had one. I remember the conversation very well. This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He's told me, he said, Lou, I want you to stop doing this. I said, okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why? And he says, well, we already know what it is. Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret SAP, and you know, they were telling me to stop. And I said, okay, sir, so it's ours? And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he said, he asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, well, sir, I think I know what it says. Where are you going with this? And he said, well, then you would know that these things are demonic and we should not be pursuing them. Yeah. And he wasn't kidding. That's exactly how he felt.
So this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic.
Correct.
But if something demonic is flying over our skies, wouldn't religious people want to fight them?
Well, you know, I think, look, I think no matter what it is, we need to figure it out. And, you know, there was a time, and this is, look, I'm a religious person, but, you know, there was a time where the church wouldn't even look through the telescope of Galileo because it conflicted with their narrative. Only to, you know, years later, them to come out and actually now, you know, use the grandeur of the universe to support their you know, their philosophical and theological belief systems.
A fully illuminated round object was hovering silently over the missile silo and shining a light down onto it.
And then from this dead stop, it shoots off to the east, just like now you see it, now you don't.
This planet is being visited by beings from another world.
Some out-of-this-world happenings at the National Press Club have lit up the internet this morning. Everyone is clamoring to read about 7 former members of the U.S. Air Force presenting their findings on UFOs. Among their claims, aliens from out of this world are taking a keen interest in nuclear weapon sites. The group documented what they call visits to nuclear sites during a period of 3 decades, and they encouraged the government to acknowledge alien visits to Earth. Now, I must say, I am a skeptic on this one. However, I mean, they're former members of the U.S. Air Force. I think they have a little bit of credibility out, there.
Well,
Don't you think?
this I guess, news conference, we could call it. It was organized by Robert Hastings. He is a UFO researcher and an author, and he's been reporting this for years, that military personnel, and I even know some military folks who have actually said there are UFO sightings all the time. The military doesn't necessarily agree with what they are finding, or at least,
why would they?
Yeah, or at least giving the theory any credence. But I will say, I believe there is other life out there.
Think how vast the universe is. How can we possibly be the only beings?
I believe it's actually infinity plus 1. That's how big it is. No, it's beyond comprehension out there. But I think the only thing that's kind of skeptical, I think that you have to kind of look at is like that they're looking after the nuclear research.
Yeah.
That's the one
What would their
that they're
interest
actually,
in that
well,
be?
how would they know? Yeah, they actually interpreted our dialogue and can actually decipher that. So that's the interesting part. So I believe they're putting their little spin on that. That's their little spin. But I think we even have our own people here in Phoenix with the Phoenix Lights.
Right,
That
absolutely.
they said
find
they've
them all the
seen
time.
lights different.
Exactly.
And I don't,
Whenever-
I don't necessarily think that it's aliens per se that are looking at these silos. I think it just could be other, countries who are wanting to tap into what we know and maybe making it look like UFOs. But I do believe there is other life out there, and a lot of you agree.
Yeah, Mark Rusinski on Facebook says, I totally believe in aliens. You would have to be a fool to think, out of all of the billions of planets circling all those stars in the sky, that there isn't at least one planet out there supporting intelligent life.
That's right. And let's look at what Sally Miner on Facebook says. If there is intelligent life out there, they are not coming to our planet looking for intelligent life.
Very true. Brewer says it's going to the feds to build a galactic fence as we speak.
Yeah.
Jan Brewer, the governor.
Yeah,
That's funny.
John Patterson said that.
Yeah, exactly. That's not
That
out of
is
her mouth.
funny. That is funny. That was what
It's
John
so
Patterson
funny
had to
whenever
say.
you talk about UFOs.
Yeah.
I mean, people just, jump right on it. Everyone has their own theories.
Well, it's an interesting concept.
It is. It
And
is.
everyone's looking out at the skies. You have a glass of wine, you're sitting outside, and you don't know if it's a wine
I wonder
talking
what
or the
possibly
light.
is up there.
Yeah,
Yeah, if one presented itself to me, I absolutely would believe in it.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm gonna
Especially if
hold
it's
out on that one.
tall, dark, and with many tentacles. Maybe it'd be a nice, tantalizing idea.
Well,
It happens in 1967 at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. Nick is on his way to meet a key witness to the event. Robert Sala served 7 years in the Air Force, rising to the rank of captain.
So tell me what happened.
March 24th, 1967, I and my commander, Fred Mywalt, were on duty in Roy, Montana.
The men are stationed in the missile launch bunker, 60 feet below ground.
We had control of 10 nuclear missiles. The Minuteman I. Each missile had an 800 kiloton nuclear weapon.
If ordered, it's Salas's job to launch the warheads.
I was on alert status. In other words, my commander, Fred, was taking a little nap break. Sometime in the early morning hours, I get a call.
On the other end of the phone is a terrified guard stationed above the bunker.
He's screaming into the phone. He's yelling, "Sir, I'm looking at the front gate. I see this glowing red object."
The strange red object is moving like nothing the guards have ever seen before.
They were flying very fast across the sky, stopping on a dime, reversing course, making 90-degree angle turns, making no noise. These guys were very, very frightened. It was a critical situation.
As fear spreads above ground, things are about to get even more terrifying below.
I need you to wake up. I've got the weirdest...
Salas wakes his commander and tells him the guard's report of a UFO above the base. Suddenly, the unthinkable happens.
The lights turned from green to red. In other words, red meaning unlaunchable.
Everything went red.
All 10 missiles were disabled, every single one of them.
So what does that mean?
It means if we were given the order and if we had to go through our launch procedures, they couldn't be launched. This was an inexplicable situation.
With the missiles down, America's nuclear shield is compromised.
What was going through your mind when all this was happening?
You know, I'm thinking we're under some sort of an attack.
As Salas and his commander desperately try to get their missiles back online, they learn that a week earlier, another missile launch crew at Malmstrom Base reported seeing the same strange lights. And seconds later, their nuclear warheads also go offline.
All 10 of their missiles went down while a UFO was overhead. All 10 of our missiles went down. The UFO was immediately over our facility.
What did you think when you found out that this had happened not once, but twice?
These were the most sophisticated weapons we had, and so it was worrying that something very unknown, very unusual, very strange could disable them.
Is this a coordinated attack by the same unidentified craft?
You must have reading on each one of them!
In both cases, the weapons are out of action for nearly 24 hours.
There's no way!
So what did shut down the nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Base? And why?
This was extraterrestrial in nature. I honestly believe that.